Let's start with some numbers here. I'm with Jason Wheeler, my Yellowticks co-host. Let's start with some races we haven't talked about all night.
Let's do that.
We're 90 minutes in. We haven't even talked about these races, man.
Let's start hyper-local here with Congressional District 30. This one going as expected tonight. This is a heavily Democratic district here in South Dallas, downtown, southern Dallas, down through Lancaster, DeSoto, Cedar Hill. Jasmine Crockett way out in front on this one in the early going here tonight.
This is to replace Eddie Bernice Johnson, who's retiring from U.S. Congress.
Right. So whoever wins this would be only the second representative to ever represent this district, because it was, created 30 years ago, right before Eddie Bernice Johnson started serving in this district, and she's been there the whole time. And so now handing the baton to another generation. And right now it looks like Jasmine Crockett doing very well tonight. Should point out, though, that this district, historically, Eddie Bernice Johnson has pulled this district by, 70, 80, 90, with 70, 80, 90% of the vote.
True. So, and if we look at this right now here, too, with Jasmine Crockett getting 77% of the vote, that's right. Kind of similar there, too. The yellow check mark on there means the Associated Press has already called. AP went out on a limb with this one tonight. and thinks that Jasmine's going to,
with a 57-point lead.
Congresswoman-elect Crockett, excuse me.
Congresswoman-elect, now with that check by her name. Exactly. Let's move on up the board here and go to Land Commissioner. This is one that I think a lot of people, don't maybe pay as much attention to on the ballot. Does a lot of very important things here in Texas, though. And we've got Dawn Buckingham and Jay Kleberg battling it out for this one. And there's 6 points separating them right now. This is with less of the vote counted, though, than what we're seeing in some of the races that are up the ticket. So, we're just getting a peek at what we're seeing ballot-wise so far.
And just to explain this race, if people haven't watched this, Dawn Buckingham is a state senator from Lakeway, which is right outside Austin. She is a physician, and she's running against Jay Kleberg, who is a scion of the King Ranch family.
Which is down in this part of the state down here. Humongous ranch down there.
It's like an entire county or two, isn't it?
I think it's like Rhode Island or so. I mean, it's huge. And
Kleberg was really talking about his conservation status. And that hasn't seemed to play in yet, because the Republican voters, or voters across the state, have so far chosen Buckingham with this early number.
Something interesting, though, with these two candidates, though, both of them have really, really highlighted the need to get more of that hurricane relief funding that was appropriated after we had Harvey, for sure. But, Kleberg was even talking about that we still have money in this state that's still sitting around from way back with Hurricane Dolly back in 2008 that hasn't been spent yet. Makes sense that he would focus in on that, because Dolly went in down there along that territory where the ranch is. But both of them saying that those funds need to be distributed in a better way than what we've seen so far. Of course, there's been a big controversy with that, and how Houston and Harris County were left out initially with that funding, which that was the epicenter of that storm for sure. But again, that race down to 5 points now. Now we're at a little more than 3 million votes counted there. Then we get to Ag Commissioner here. Sid Miller is the incumbent here. You can see that this is a tight one. We've got 2 points. That's tighter than it has been here in the last little bit. But again, we're just getting a peek right now at the early vote still. Still a lot of vote left to come there as well.
And this is 3.2 million of the 5.5 million people who voted early here. Susan Hayes is an attorney. She lives out in far west Texas, and she's running against Sid Miller, who, of course, has a ranch and raises show horses down in the Stephenville area.
Yeah, we're not seeing a lot of vote from out in that part, in her part of the state there. So we'll see if that affects that out that way too, that she's from out there. Then we have Attorney General Rochelle Garza in front now, 49 to 48. But again, we just hate to sound like a broken record, but we keep couching this. This is early still. Even though we're at 3.3 million votes here, there's still so much to be counted.
This is early, but what is interesting here, and this can flip back and forth, and it can go back and forth all night. What is interesting is this is the first time all night, and in the past few elections that you and I have done, that I ever remember seeing a blue rectangle on top of a red one.
Even with Ken Paxton, which, by the way, the last time, Ken Paxton, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and Governor Abbott have all sort of been moving through the system together. They all got elected to their current offices in 2014, re-elected in 2018, and now they're all running again in 2022. In the last election, the Ken Paxton election was by far the closest. He was re-elected by about 3.5% of the vote. It was closer than any other statewide race. So you did have some people going down the ballot, either skipping him or voting for his opponent there. And so, you know, this is going to be interesting to see how this plays tonight. Republicans, you know, still feeling confident that he'll be able to pull this out. But, you know, the last time he had the overhang of the, you know, securities fraud charges over him, he still won re-election. Since then, we've had new developments from people within his own office complaining, you know, filing formal complaints that he abused his office. And so that investigation. And then on top of that, something extraordinary that we hadn't seen in, I hadn't seen it in, I can't remember how long. He drew 3 competitors in the primary earlier this year. And these were big name competitors, a former Supreme Court justice here, the land commissioner, and a Congressman Louis Gohmert. He was able to vanquish all of them, yes, but you wonder, was any damage done from people in his own party, big names in his own party, who had some very unkind things to say about him during that primary campaign.
And we thought this race might be one of the closest. Polls have shown this race right here might be one of the closest. Here's what's going to happen just from history. All this is going to fill in with red.
Sure.
These are all Republican areas. Harris County, though, has not reported.
Likely.
That will go blue.
At least if it goes anything according to history. And you have 0 there right now, and we keep pointing this out. Harris County is the heavyweight here in Texas, by far the most votes of any county in Texas.
And then Fort Bend County just to the southwest as well. So there's still some more blue to fill in on the map, and a lot of red that's going to fill in on this map here.
I think you know that we are either really, really early in the night with vote counting, or something very crazy has happened, though, when you're looking at a race like this and you see Brazoria County going for the Democrat. That doesn't happen. And so that just gives you an indication that we're looking at a sliver of the vote right now. I would not expect that to stay that way through the night. If it does, we've got a much more interesting election than any of us had planned for.